Hello everyone, welcome back to our third installment. And we've been talking about womanhood. Our third installment today is focusing on next generations. What next? What are we really teaching? And as always, I am your host, Ntsiki Kote, and I'm together here with a lovely panel of three people, three women and two gentlemen. And they will introduce themselves as I hand over to my co-host, Viwe.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our two previous episodes. My name is Viwe Mchonji, and I'm going to hand over to one of the panelists to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Duka Mushesh. I've introduced myself in the last two episodes. You need to go and watch those on MelVee's channel. I hope that you will find this summation of what we are discussing to be intriguing.
Good day, everyone. My name is Nomonde Maimela. This is our third episode. I hope you will enjoy it as you did the last two we did. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I'm Shimi Maimela. I hope you are going to have fun as we spend this quality time together. Thank you.
Right, without any further ado, Viwe, can you take it away for us, please?
Well, based on the two last episodes, we started with God's idea. The very first one, looking at the historical foundations, and then the last time we're looking at the contemporary issues. Now, we are talking about the next generations. The general overview of challenges of parenting in current times. Let's talk to our very experienced mother. She's a mother of three. She's actually even now a grandmother.
I am a grandmother twice.
Grandmother twice. Now, can you give us any specific worries for the girl child? What about the boy child these days?
Well, I think the worries about the girl child always is to be able as a parent to provide security for the child, you know, and to protect the girl child also from a toxic masculinity, you know. So that's the challenge of the girl child. But the challenge of parenting in today's world really is, we spoke about women being able to fend for themselves, and we know we've got a lot of single mothers today. And so the prime concern is to be able to raise a child. The cost of living now, it's higher than it used to be when our parents used to go to the fields and plant and be self-reliant, you know. The concern about education of a child, to be able to take your children to the best schools, to the schools that will actually enforce your values, your moral values, or whatever values that you want your child to learn. And of course, the primary concern also for concerned parents is that of time, you know, to be able to be present for your child, to balance resources, balance the duty of going home, going to work and being at home and actually listening to your child as your child grows, so that you are able to impart your own values in a child. Social media has also given us a lot of challenges as parents. You know, how much do you give to a child? Do you buy your child a cell phone? At what age? Those are the things that parents should be careful about. Gone are the days where, you know, you parent as you go. It has to be a very considered
and intentional
attitude towards raising children. And I will just run through the other ones. I mentioned also there's a concern about boy children, to be able to raise your child, the boy child, to live right, not to end in prison. To balance the expectation of your child. It starts from when they are young, when they are small, when they are, you know, when they can still listen. This imparting of values, that you work for what you get. You work. So instilling the ethic of work in your child is also very important. And also whether these instilled values, if you instill it, will it stick as your child gets to have other relationship, look at, consume social media content. You want it to stick. What you told the child to stick throughout the child's, growing stage. To provide a child as a mother a warm home where a child can actually come and know that I am coming to a place of love, a place of security, a place where I am accepted, a place where I can tell everything that worries me. To create that environment, it needs to be intentional, that your child can know that you are not a dismissive parent, but you listen to your children. You provide a place of peace where a child can know that as he comes back from a cruel world out there, a challenging world, he can come home to rest his soul. Being present, protecting the child, instilling Christ values. Am I exemplifying Christ in the way I relate to my husband? So that when they grow, they can take marriage as a beautiful thing, a desired thing, right? Am I exemplifying marriage to be what God intended it to be?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Monde. Over to you, Nziki, as you...
Thank you for that. As you're saying that, you're talking about a place of peace, a place of affirmation, a place of safety.
Yep.
There's so many people who are now in adulthood and are grown and are broken. They are broken people simply because their places of nurturing, their homes where they were nurtured, were not places of safety for them. So they then become these adults who are unable to positively interact with life and with others, and they perpetuate what they have learned at their places. And I suppose, turning to you, Abuchimi, then, how do you then advise, how can we equip today's parent to raise properly spiritually grounded children?
Thank you, Nziki. I believe the first important thing, particularly I have realized that with the girl child, you offer more prayer as they walk out of home and when they are absent, because the odds are against them. Today we live in an environment where single-headed households are very prevalent, very common, and those that are headed by women, by men, by children and grandparents. So it's a very challenging situation right there.
Yeah, I'm glad, Shimi, that you mentioned the fact that some households are actually even headed by children.
Yeah.
Child-led households.
Absolutely. And you see, what is complex about this whole situation is that this single parent has to perform all the roles, has to be a person whom the child can come to for love and for comfort and for understanding. But also at the same time be the person who is not a pushover. She must always exhibit those two core competencies in a very balanced way. But also the kind of challenges they face as single-headed household, it's that now there's two centers of power. First, there was one center of power when mommy and daddy were together. Now mommy and dad are no longer together. The mother who remains with the children tries her best to bring up these children on the straight and the narrow. But the father, when the children goes to visit, he attempts to relax the laws, to try and buy time, compensate for the time lost. And so that creates a challenge. There are also challenges with regards to who ends up with the children. Visiting issues becomes a problem. So you are expected to be the rock that doesn't break. So at all costs, you must be there and you must perform at your best. You must juggle between jobs. In other countries, you must actually work 2 to 3 jobs, and you must know when you come at home and you are tired, you must bath the children, check the homework, and you must also perform the priesthood functions as a mother. So the going gets rough. It's not like in a nuclear family where you've got a father, a mother, and children, where responsibilities are shared. And now this hang on you as a single parent. How do you get a handle on this? And the answer, it's simple, is found in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6. And it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart. In all your ways, acknowledge him. And he will direct your path. So there's a need to hang yourself onto the one who is able to do immeasurably more than you can ever imagine for you. So that you can turn around this tide, and when your job is done, heaven can look favorably upon you. There are children who have come out of single-headed household beautifully because you have paid the price. No matter how difficult it is, always hook up with the higher power. And as you hook up with the higher power, you will find strength, you will rejoice in your suffering. And as time goes on, you will find that the Lord will grant you victory, and your children will turn out to be what they should be. There are people who have come out to be, who have become ministers out of single-headed households, and led by a single mother. And I know a family where the mother died at a young stage, and the father remained core to the task. He never moved away from his core duty, and the children have come out just fine.
Amen.
But having said that, I do not mean that in nuclear families, the going is smooth and right. Remember, families are under attack. So when families are under attack, nuclear families also hang on a thread called prayer. So prayer must be a dominant key in your life as a single parent. The Lord will fill in the gap where the other part is missing. And you'll be amazed how you can progress and be able to can give praise to the Lord for how he has intervened in your life. Thank you.
And in some, there are families who do not have like a father or a... If you can, once in a while or so often, take that child and actually invite them in your home to give them a feel of a family institution, how it is. So as we live, we should look out where we can help, where we can reach out and help those who are in need, a lot, emotional needs, spiritual needs, all those things. We are called to actually be the eyes, the hands, the feet of God.
Wow, that is very interesting and very insightful indeed. Called to be the hands and the eyes of God. Viewer, I would like you to just talk us through. So now in today's world, your children, how would you like your girl child to view the male amongst us and your boy child to view the female amongst us? What different perspectives do you want your child to have of the opposite sex?
Recently I watched a TED Talk that was given by a woman who's a fraternal twin. And she was talking about how she and her twin brother were raised in the family. And she talked about, for instance, at different stages when they bought them the bicycle, they referred to the bicycle as the brother's bicycle, and yet it was for the twins. When it was time, when she got to the age of driving age, for the most part, boys tend to start even younger. Let's say by 15, they can be behind the steering wheel. But then for her, it was later that she was taught by her brother to drive. And now she was talking about how, and I think for me, it became very powerful taking two babies who were in the same womb, born on the same day, almost with similar names, you know, Tsepiso and Matsepo, but then they were being raised differently. I think then this is where it starts. Besides, how do they view others? How do they view themselves? And you think about, who am I? And in the very first episode, that is where Shimi spoke about people viewing themselves as being made in the image of God. That both, and in this case, it's not a married couple. It's a boy and a girl born on the same day. So view myself as made in the image of God, and then they were God's idea and have a purpose to fulfill. And also, but treat others with respect. Because this idea that, and I think you closed the last episode with that it's not an us and them. It's all of us together. God made us all. How do we cooperate? How do we coexist? And then I think another thing for me, a big one that Tuka would remember this, because I even wrote something on social media where sometimes women look at men as ATMs, or even men themselves, that, okay, I will provide, but I will ask for certain favors and sexual favors. You remember there was a time when maybe older men who had means would educate younger girls without expecting anything. You are trying to make sure that this person can really live their best life by giving them an education. But why should you be asking if you're an older person? Because again, in the work that I do, we're finding that some of the new infections in HIV are as a result of, this transactional sex that happens between different age groups. So respecting the person, not expecting to be getting something or using them. The other one is, I think it's important to be exposed to different cultures, because some of the things you might think that, hey, this is the best way. What is the saying? A boy who never visits thinks his mother is the best cook. But oh no, man.
That's a clever boy.
And also the idea of really cooperating with others. This team, it's a great team. It's got both men and women, because I think in some ways, we do think differently about certain things. It doesn't necessarily mean that, I would love to get maybe a male perspective on this issue. And then not that it's like it's competition, it's someone that I'm fighting with. And I think it's very important right in the family that they can see that we are rewarded equally. If we do certain things, like, how sometimes if a boy child does the dishes, wow, you are praised, oh, hail the king, because there's done something that perhaps is normal. But try as much as possible and live to be the person who can be self-sufficient regardless. Because for instance, there are people like myself, I never thought I was going to be a single person for the rest of my life, but I'm glad that I was raised to be independent so that you are able to do things, because sometimes people think perhaps they need to be attached so that they can get somebody, and then they get sometimes into relationships that perhaps are not very supportive or building of their, of their mission.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we just correct that? This is not the rest of your life. We don't know for how long you'll be single. And if you are, there's nothing wrong or bad about it. But I just wanted to highlight, this is not the rest of your life.
Well, just because it has become very comfortable. So now I'm thinking, wow, I love this. Who knows?
Okay. No, that's great.
So, Tuka, can you talk to us? We hear a lot about this issue of toxic masculinity, toxic femininity. Can you take us through that? How do they manifest?
That is a very large order. But I think I could contribute by saying that God created us male and female. And together we express God's image. The day one believes that you can fully express God's image without the complement is the day you begin to be one-sided about who and what God is. I think one of the biggest problems we have today is among the groups that are contesting the spaces that we're talking about is there's currently a movement. I mean, there are many movements, but there's currently a movement that actually has a name, MGTOW or MGTOW, which is literally men going their own way.
Wow.
And their philosophy is, by and large, look, we can do most of our lives without women.
Yeah.
Maybe you might need one or two things. I mean, the regular things that women contribute, but in my personal life, it's okay for me to just be with other guys. On the other hand, you have, I think I alluded to this in the second episode, where you have women who are convicted that there needs to be a separate space where they can exist and no one else must come in. And while that might be good in the short term, or at least in an emergency situation, society speaking, I don't think it's a good long-term strategy, because in the similar way that you don't want a boardroom full of men deciding on women's issues, you don't want a space where women are telling each other how to react to men and there are no men present to balance out that view. In some cases, it could be that the man is there to advocate for men. It could be that the man is there to warn against certain things that other men do. So we by and large need to express God's image in its totality.
Correct.
And that means together. And there's no way around that. I think what we call toxic masculinity or toxic femininity happen to be, regardless of how you define masculinity and femininity, is when you take that thing to the extreme, such that it negatively impacts either yourself or the other. And when it begins to do that, when it begins to erode another person's life, then that's literally what a toxin does. It breaks down your health. So as long as we don't have a way to build each other up with our masculinity and our femininity, we're forever going to find ourselves killing each other. And then at the end of the day, we sit down and say, well, you see, women are like that, or men are like that. And then you exclude them more and more from whatever it is that you do. One of the issues I find with that is the more you, as a man, the more I exclude women from my life, the fewer opportunities I have to exchange with them. And in those opportunities, the interaction is going to be extreme, because you're trying to fit in a whole dynamic into a single instance, rather than spreading it out and getting a bit of context into how the other person is. So I would say we need to open up more spaces to each other, but cautiously so. Look, there's a lot of pain that's come out of what has happened in the past, and we shouldn't be we should be wise in how we deal with one another. But to exclude any group, minority or majority or the other, or even those of your own kind, it's not the way God had created us to be. We are social beings, and we should embrace that with all of its risks, and should find ways to make that safer for one another.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Yeah.
Making it safe for one another. Because I think, as you said, and Tsiki, in one of the episodes, that at times it's as if people are fighting each other. And yet, if we make safe spaces, you allow me the space to interact with you as a man and me as a woman. And we do it in a way that is not combative and abrasive. That what has this person got to contribute, and how can we be a better community and society working together with our different approaches.
But my perspective as well on it is, you know, there is evil and there is good. We do not need to genderize these concepts. Sometimes a person is ill-mannered, or a person is just not cooperative, or a person is what we call a bad person, not because of the gender or their sex. It's more the character that they've chosen as they were choosing through life. And therefore, for you to make a judgment call and say, because you've experienced this, therefore women are like this, is very flawed. Similarly, because you've experienced a certain thing about a man, therefore all men are like this. I think that we've got to we've gone too far in assigning and ascribing gender to things. And I like what the Maimela said at the beginning, and I think it's you as well. The important thing is mutual respect of a fellow human being. Can we start from there? Mutual respect of a fellow human being. What role they play in society as assigned by God, and what sex they are as assigned by biology, becomes secondary, because they then adopt certain mannerisms. They become a certain person, not because of their gender, but because of the character they choose to be, as they choose or reject Jesus Christ. And I think that it is important, therefore, not to genderize a lot of things. Therefore, my beloved panel and my beloved co-host, you can just take me through as we conclude to say, what is God's caution to all people in these times regarding this? And I know that we've had snippets of it in the previous episodes, but we can just, this being the final installment, just give a take on that.
For me, the first thing is, the Lord Jesus was very upfront when he left. He says, in this world, you will have a rough time. But be of good, which is tribulation, but be of good cheer. For I have overcome the world.
Correct.
And when in one of his sermons he says, come unto me all ye that labor. Whether it's the woman that is laboring, or the single parent, or the nuclear family, husband and wife, let us go to him, for he has promised us that if we take his yoke, his yoke is easy. The problem with us human beings, we come to him, we respond to the call, but when we go back, we want to go back with our burdens. We must learn the art of living our burdens at the cross. One lady, having led his family quite well, he says, it is hard, it is difficult, it is like childbirth pains, but you can't give up. So nobody can give up. Remember, there's a hell to shun and there's a heaven to win.
Yes.
All for the better if we make it up yonder with our children. Those that you have left, those that you have led alone as a single parent, and those that both husband and wife has been faithful to duty, it will be a rewarding experience and a pleasant experience second to none. For the Lord will reward every step that we take. My common quotation that I like is that men are not an optional extra. They are a standard feature in the lives of their children.
Yes.
And one author puts it that way. He says, when a child is born, he comes with 3 standard features. It's a guardian angel, it's a father and a mother, and none of them should be absent. Now, in the place where it's a single-headed household, the Lord steps in to complete that triangle, and it makes it so beautiful. So each and every one of us, nobody should say, I am more interested on national activities. My wife should deal with home affairs issues. You can't be interested on issues that are of national interest and ignore issues that are of personal interest to you. Remember, our children are our primary function as parents. And that's one area we cannot afford to fail. Our girl child must be nourished more, for the odds are against them. Our women should be given the respect they do, for they are not just nobodies. They matter in our lives, and as the Bible says, without them there is none of us. Yes.
You know, Jesus says, you are the light of the world. And somewhere he also says, you are the salt of the world. So go out there and light up the spaces where you are in. Obviously, there is evil everywhere, right? But we are called as Christians to actually go out there and light up the world. First, lighting up your home, right? And then, of course, the church and the world, the surroundings immediately around you. You light them up with love and respect, listening to each other, giving each other space to grow as God wants us to. Now, you know, in John 15, verse 12, it reads, love one another as I have loved you. This is my commandment, that ye love one another, even as I loved you. If we can live up to this one, so much can be changed. So much can be done. Let us be the light of the world.
Ambassadors for Jesus.
The ambassadors for Jesus. And, you know, remember that the children we raise in our homes are tomorrow's parents. So in our homes, we can break this cycle of abuse, of, you know, by giving and making sure and being considerate of how we raise our children.
Amen. That's beautiful.
I think there are a few things I would want to point out, and it might be that I'm more speaking to men than to women, because I'm a man. The first one is, I believe it's 2 Kings chapter 3, in verse 27. Interesting story. Moab basically provokes Israel. And you know they had a treaty where they're not supposed to go and attack, but Moab provokes Israel, and Israel goes and attacks them with God's blessing that you can go to war. During the war, they do something. They cut down all the trees in the surrounds, even the trees that bear fruit. Deuteronomy 20 tells us that when you go to war, you're not supposed to cut down. You can cut down trees for wood, but not the vegetation. The idea that after the war, the people of the city must be able to come out and
Yes,
find
sir.
food. So you don't go in with fire and brimstone, quite literally, to kill the vegetation around when you besiege a city. Israel does this. And so you find in verse 27 a very strange thing. It declares that Moab loses, and then there's a line that says, and the wrath of God was against Israel. And then it moves on and speaks another summary, and then it goes into a different
Other things.
And many have tried to figure out what is the meaning of this wrath on Israel, even though Israel won the battle. And when you reflect on the notion that Israel did something it was not supposed to do, even though it was fighting one of the Lord's battles, it got punished. And one of the things I think we should take home from that is, even the best of intentions can have negative impacts.
Correct.
One must guard your intentions, yes, but one must also guard your impact on other people.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, you're going to cause harm in this world thinking you're going on God's errands. And there are many people who have been abused, who have been neglected, because the parents said, I'm doing God's work. Secondly, I think our responsibility, and this will be twofold. I think our responsibility is expressed in John as well. John 8:32, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Amen.
Christ wishes us to have freedom, and he says freedom comes from truth. It is important that we stop lying to ourselves and that we are honest with other people. When we try to hide parts of ourselves from ourselves, by not addressing those issues, we're causing damage to people who have to confront that.
Yeah.
John 10:10 says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and life abundantly. What's interesting about this is that anyone who does not wish for you to have life abundantly is a thief.
Yes. Correct.
When you interact with people, either they want you to live life abundantly, in its abundance, or they are a thief. And so when you look at the people who are in your lives, especially parents and their children, you should be looking to impart an influence on them that helps them to live life abundantly, not just live life. That extra abundance of life, that they may be happy that they knew you, that they grew up in your home. And a lot of people are not focused on that. Lastly, and I would say this, because we live in a society where men have power, it's incumbent on men, and we've seen this in the Bible, where provisions are made to protect women. It's important that as men, we protect those who are vulnerable. That includes women, that includes children, even from ourselves. Because sometimes we are the biggest threats in their lives. Almost half, if not over half, of all domestic sexual abuse cases occur in the home of the victim or the home of the perpetrator. That cannot be the standard. That people are being molested, raped, abused by people they know and love.
Yeah.
So if we were simply to stop that, half of abuse, half of death, half of rape, half of GBV would end overnight.
Yeah.
If every man protected those within his influence. And I think for me, that's the clarion call of this entire thing. Yes, womanhood is defined by women, but it needs to be preserved and protected by men.
Wow. Powerfully said there by Tuka. I remember one time we had a man from the police service and was saying that most of the cases they deal with are from homes, the unsafest place for children. It was focusing on children that day, is their actual homes. From my side, and I think as we look back on the last 3 episodes and being the 3rd one today, I'd like to conclude with words from a wise man, King Solomon, in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, the last 2 verses, where he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Now, when you're thinking that we're going to account about what we do, we're going to account as women, we're going to account as men, then it becomes crucial that, fortunately, in his word, God has given us a beautiful blueprint on how we ought to treat one another. I think that is the best. Over to you, Ntsiki.
Beautiful. Thank you so much to my panel, to my co-host, and to you, viewer, wherever you might be. We continue to wish and pray and hope that this has empowered you, or at the very least has intrigued you to go and learn more and find out more, and prayerfully ask God to change the attitudes that need changing, to affirm you where you need affirmation, as we live for a better world, even as we wait for his soon coming. Let us wait in safe spaces for everybody. Let us wait in peaceful homes, peaceful workplaces, harmonious interactions between men and women. Keep watching MelVee. Subscribe, do your bit, and see you next time.